Good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele Ndebele, and this is the Breakfast Club. We bring you this program daily, Monday to Friday, and you can get in touch with us on all our social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, at site ZW. You can also follow me on Twitter at Zenzele. I'm also on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, I'm on WhatsApp. Today we are talking about violence in Zimbabwe and the culture of violence. And I say the culture of violence because if you look at the history of Zimbabwe from colonial times, we have always had episodes of violence. And unfortunately, there has never been a time when, as a nation, we've had a discussion about how do we solve violence? How do we have peace and reconciliation? And for decades, we've had people that are very angry about what happened during pre-colonial times, about what happened during the colonial times, what happened during the war, what happened during the Kukurawundi, the 2000s, 2018, up to now. Families, communities, political parties have always been on each other's throats. And I realize that we have generations of people who have gone through torture, who are angry, who lost their relatives. And in communities, especially when you look at Kukurawundi, the liberation struggle, there are some people who be looking at each other and say, Loana watengi subabami, Loana watengi sumalumami. And we've never had that opportunity to talk about these issues. I know we've had the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, whose main aim, let me say, was to deal with the issues of reconciliation, and little has been done. And recently, earlier this month or last month, we're celebrating, commemorating the International Day Against Torture Victims, where we brought in a number of people to come and talk about their personal experiences when it comes to torture, inhumane treatment, and it stretches back to the liberation struggle. 1980, there was an amnesty, and all those who had done something to each other were given an amnesty. And then in 1987, after the Kukurawundi, also there was an amnesty. And the problem is that it's always those in power who give amnesty to each other, to the armies, but the communities are still hurting. And if we don't address the issues of violence in Zimbabwe, this culture is going to go on. Trauma can be transferred from one generation to the other. So we have young people who are very angry, who might not have witnessed Kukurawundi, who might not have witnessed the liberation struggle, but know what happened and hear what happened. And that trauma is transferred. They become more radical than their parents, than their forefathers. So I'm not surprised that in Zimbabwe we have groups like MRP who are calling for secession, who are calling for a number of things, who are saying we're not being treated fairly, we are being marginalized, because they feel like their grievances, the grievances of their fathers, the grievances of their mothers, the grievances of their grandparents are not taken into consideration. And the unfortunate part is that from 1980 up to now, we have had one government which has been involved in violence in different stages, be it Kukurawundi, be it 2008, be it 2018, and they've always protected each other. So if we don't deal with violence, with reconciliation, last week we have had these programs where people saying the spirit of the dead are saying they want to be reburied. There's so much that is going on in Zimbabwe. There's so much that has not been resolved. Economic prosperity would mean nothing in Zimbabwe if our people still boggle the anger. People are angry. If you want to see that people are angry, go and watch a Dynamo's Highlanders match. It becomes tribal. Go and see what's happening on Twitter, on Facebook, on WhatsApp. We are always at each other's throats, insulting each other because I'm Shona, I'm Ndebele, you are Ndebele, I'm Kalanga. And it is because over years, anger has been building on, and there is no outlet to talk about these things, to vent out. And this program today, which is going to be part of the many series that we are going to be talking about, looking at peace building in Zimbabwe, looking at the issue of transitional justice. We are talking to victims of torture, or we are listening to the stories of the victims of torture, telling about their experiences and how they've been bottling up all this anger over the years.
Nyathi, umlweli welizwe wenkululeko, but kathesi civic activism ukuthi ezoxoxa lathi.
Mbuso ungaqali ukungquse into efana leyo la. Xa ngizabe ngiphika next year ngoJuni 27 unganxusa ngibuye. ngoba nxa ngimi lapha ngicabanga ukuthi uMalandu lo Vivian u-Ernest lo Vivian bakhuluma i-experience yethu yokulwela ilizwe leli ukuthi lingabi lokho elikho khona. Into angizange balitshele yona ukuthi ewawa lapho esasikhona safunda into eziningi, safunda lokupheka. Ngakho phakathi kwabo khonapha othi nxa ethethe aphekelwe unkosikazi, ngoba into esivele siyazi ukuthi angavuma unkosikazi bonke vele abakwazi ukupheka. Angikwazi ukuthi amadoda ayenzelani ukuthi ukupheka umama wala bengakwazi ukupheka. Abantu abapheka kuhle ngoba thina sakufunde ejele ngoba sasile kwakuthiwa yini Malandu ama-group, loyo pheka ama-group, lo lapha ama-group. Singaxoxelana izitori ezasenzakala ewawa ezingabuhlungu njengalokho kade kukhulunywa lokho, ngoba kuyaswelakala ukuthi kwezinye isikhathi ngesixoxe nezinto ezingabuhlungu eziyizo eziyitopic yalokho engikhuluma ngakho namuhla. Recognizing the bravery and humanity of victims and survivors of torture. Ubuhlungu lobo esibudluleyo lobuya obe-torture obenza sihlulukelwe kaburepresent abantu abathothwayo, ngoba lonke lila into eqakathekileyo ngani yikuba yini kwenu, izithunzi zenu, ubuntu benu, ukuhlonipha izinto eziningi ezitshiyeneyo. Sakhona amanye ama-victims abangafani lani, that you will continue to be you, ulokhu nguwe uzihlonipha, uhlonipha lobuntu. Into okufanele si-avoid kuleli lizwe leli yikuthi lathi sigcine sesifana labantu abangama-torturers, sigcine sesifana labantu abenza ububi. Ngibe ne-privilege some 2 weeks ago ngaya e-Cape Town, i-program esiyenzayo labo abasincedisayo ngayo bacabanga ukuthi senza izinto ezimangalisayo esingazishiya lama-Palestinians. So sahlangana nama-Palestinians e-Cape Town, babe ngu-8 from 8 different organizations bevele hamala indawo yabo. Ungalalela ukuhlukuluzwa okwenziwa ama-Palestinians ngamaJuda ngama-Israelis. It's impossible ukuthi ubelieve ukuthi abantu bona baphila njani. I-torture, of course, i-torture is relative ukuthi uyabungaphi and so forth and so on. Akukho ukuthi ingcono kule yinye yonke ubuhlungu. But nxa usuthi uyalalela ukukhumbuzela into lana ukuthiwa kungathe ebantwini fakani inhlupho zenu zonke lapha nizivuthelele. Step back 10 feet, dobha any other nhlupho. Ungabi le ndaba lokuthi ngikabani. 10 cases out of 10 umuntu uzadobholwa kuhlupho ngoba yilo lujayileyo lwalusisayo. So ama-Palestinians lana wawuthi nxa ulalele uhlupho lwabo uthi hayi kungcono ukuba seZimbabwe kuloku be-Palestine. But one thing about them, very polite, abasebenzisi ulimi lokuthuka. Ama-Palestinians, polite people, willing to bend themselves, by the way, bachi, suicide bombing. Polite people, gentle men, gentle women, very, very dignified, ufundiwe lokufundwa, but ikhozi yabo bayayazi. Abavumeli ukuthi babe yizikiwi ngenxa yobukiwi obenziwa ngamaJuda. That is often avoid. Because we have been tortured so much, the temptation to be a perpetrator is very strong. Lokuthi uzonde to an extent yokuthi kube sokufiphaza lokhu okulwelayo is very easy. Nxa uzenzele khuluma ukuthi next year abantu babe ngama-perpetrators, I know ukuthi uyabengakubelieve. Abantu abangandu mama lo besiyakuthika bafune abantu be-opposition ereni yabo abakubelieve khonokho. Ngabantu asebethathwele ubuntu babo, isithunzi sabo. by ama-perpetrators bagcine labo sebesiba ngama-torturers. Lapha la abantu abalapha la nxa ngililalele solikhuluma okunye okungakufuniyo Zenzele ngombuthano lo ukuthi nxa sengihlangane lo Malando lo Vivian bangikhumbuza kakhona okunye kuba lo Atwell Atwell lo wani lo Thamsanqa u-Atwell lo Thamsanqa abangi-reminder about the current torture. Exactly the same. How is it possible to fight for justice for 42 years? There must be something wrong. UThamsanqa uthena wabotshwa uSibanda Gibson. Anti mina eyakithi ayicabanga ukuthi ihlakaniphile. uGibson wathi bembopha amatira nangabaleka. Wamhambise elokhuzeni ekami so futhi ngisona. Humiliate kwegqoko kuyilokho lokudabula so futhi ngisona. Mina lokho embaleka. Then kube ngase ngicabanga ukuthi sokuphelile. Sengisiye elokhuzeni ecourt lapho kwayo. Trade gold. Semphuma ngaphandle kwesethonise semphuma material welumbamba. Thana bengihambise uphayile no not ngadlule esentrala Queen's Park no isona hospital. One day kuthiwa uNgwenya uyangitshengisa lokhuzi iphepha iSunday Standard. Uthi uyabona babhala inonsense lapha bathi thina siyachaya abantu wena sike sakuchaya. So Ngwenya engqondweni yakho you actually think it is right ukunganjani. Kono you think it's okay ukuthi you can even think kono ukunganjani. Hayi phela siyefuna ukuthi babhala. It just gives you an idea of how people lose ubuntu babo ngenxa ye-pressure ayenza yomsebenzi ababewenza kumbe circumstances ababebekizo. So thina we should avoid that. We should avoid it for one simple reason. We are better than abantu abenza zona izinto ezimbi. Kanti umuntu watshela bona abantu abenza izinto zonke zona ukuthi ilizwe leli ngelabo ngubani in the first place. Who told them khona ukuthi ilizwe leli ngelabo? Why is it thina sonke kusukela ngesikhathi esaqalisa ngaso silwela izinto eziqondileyo sonke sikhanya singekho lapha esingalungisa khona kuhle izinto lalapha esabe sikhona amandla ethu abe malutshwana sisenqatshelwa ngabantu abenza ububi all the time. What is it? Are we not good organizers? Do we lack resources? Right? What is it? So can each one of us. We are here because we fought for justice and we fought for the right thing. Kade sowing ngoko. Isesikhuluma ngayo kuphela. Ukuthi sathothwa, sithothelwane. So that things would be better than what they are. Kati lona ibalelithi torture. Ngesikhiwa lichoni. Bangidingele laba abantu abadinga kubogogo. The action or practice of inflicting severe pain or suffering on someone is punishment or in order to force them to do or say something. Force them to do something or say something. Now, if tortured, if torture is aimed at changing who you are, also respond to a torture, either a physical pain or emotional pain or any other form of torture. Awukuforce ukuthi wenze izinto. Abanye bahlala bekhona apha. Uhlale khona phana nje umngane wami uKhembu. Is there. Baningi abantu bakithi, particularly bona lumhlubulo. I've always often said umuntu wesindebeleni okuzani is so angry kulula ukuthi uhambe uyokhuluma nomuntu osesishoneni okuzani about umuntu okuhluphayo la kulokuzama ukukhuluma lo Richard Ndlovu. Ungazama ukukhuluma lo Richard Ndlovu uhlazonde akuphi ubuso khona kanti into abayenza uAngelina Masuku ukuthi uyasukuma elokhuzeni ichurch uthi likhulumelana neground uzuhozo nabantu bakini. Meanwhile abantu besishoneni baya-recognize ukuthi kule NPRC loba beyibulele baya-recognize ukuthi NPRC kufanele ilungise udaba lonke lolu. Wena uhlezi umuntu wesindebeleni uviolate i-constitution ukuthi lingabokhuluma ngento zolezo. Njengeyabo Obedi bonke bona. You look at him and say this is a tortured individual. Usehlulekile ukuthi resiste i-torture to an extent ukuthi asale lokho ayikho khona elobuntu bakhe. Zenzele, I want to say this. I know when ukuthi you are also interested in doing practical things. How can we turn the experience yonale? Kungabe istory nje ezizokhuluma mhla 27 June. How can we turn this experience and say, wherever these people are, lapho ungathi uyi-formation okuthize, ibheju, yini, abantu laba must demonstrate resilience, strength resilience. If you have survived the torture, can you then use that experience to make this country better? Then Israel will not be made better by 1 million people. This country will be made better by a few individuals being very strong, organizing themselves wherever they can to stand for that which is right. Of course, there are challenges is our life, which we will also have to deal with. Elizweni leli kathesi okubusayo kathesi i-access kuma-resources. Nxa ungehluleka uku-access ama-resources, kuba nzima kuwe ukuthi umele iqiniso lelo ongabe ufuna ukumela. Each one of us has a price. Nxa ngekhaya ungasela kudla, abantwana bengasayanga esikolo, imithi ezibhedlela ifunakala, it's easy ukuthi succumb to torture, emotional torture. But how can we organize ourselves? Do we do that by from time to time getting together and not just sharing our experiences and torture, but saying how can we make things better in our country? Maybe excessively paid, but we are lucky we have amongst some of you young people who own this country. This country is not owned by bonaba bantu abenza lokho abakwenza ilizwe. They don't own this country. Asuke labo ilizwe. It doesn't. Okokuqala, to resist torture, kufanele weyise umuntu okutorchayo. Ungameyisa, umenyanye. Ate kuchaya, utoka gogo wakho. Akuphinde futhi uhle omkhulu. Akuphinde futhi uyinja. Aphinde futhi uyindwangu. You are giving yourself the courage not to succumb to the torture. Finally, ngifuna ukucina ngalokho. Ngihlala reserve most of my time. 3/4 of the time I spend in reserve. And then I look back to the time kulelwa inkululeko kwini ovele uJoniwe. Into okuphethe ukukhulula abantu kabakhululwa kuphela ekubandezeni labesicabanga ukuthi babandezeni. Ukukhulula abantu ukubanika isithunzi, dignity. Akula muntu osereserve ongaqamba amanga athi kulesithunzi. Nxa kuzakuthi ngenxa yendlala lama structures akhona afoselwe ukwenza into angayifuniyo ngenxa yendlala. Abantu engihlala labo ereserve engilo, uchairwoman wezana, kuthiwa nguchairwoman wezana, uyathengisa la uxakuxaku lombumbulu lokunye ngaphansi kwesihlahla. Istock sakhe sibe sesishota, sibe sesishotile istock sakhe abe sebuya kimi aze ukuthi ngicela ukuthi ungincedise ngidinga istock khonapha ngifake. Ngibe sengisiwa nenhloni zokumbuza ukuthi kanti imeli ibusayo indaba kade manje ungalakho lokho. Ngibe sengidiscover only one thing, khonokho athi uyakusekela khonokho kakwazi plus vele kakubelieve, kodwa kunomunye umuntu amzondayo okwelinye ibandla sefuna-ke ukusebenzisa ukuchiyana kwamabandla khonokho njengendlela yokukhawulisa lwanomunye lwana. And this is what has happened ebantwini bakithi. They are tortured, batorture i-system engabaniki ithuba lokuthi bathandane. Okokuqala ngoba bangathandana bazacabanga kuhle batshintshe indlela abavota ngayo. Okwesibili, bangavele bazwanane ingxenye bazazikhipha endlaleni lokuyangeni lo. Bangenze njalo kuzaba nzima ukuthi bakhokhelwe kubi. Nxa uhlonipha abantu bakini, uhlonipha ubuntu babo, ungake wathatha ivoti yabo ngenkomisho yerayisi. Into esahamba sayilwela sonke, sa-organize, sa-mobilize abantu bahamba baya ku-training kade besitshela ngayo ukuthi sithole one person one vote. Wena usuyithola ngokunika umuntu irayisi ngenxa yokuthi ulambile umnyanga uyahlupheka. This country, i-torture, ngananzelela i-torture after independence. I-torture after independence is so bad ngenxa yokuthi you don't expect umuntu ole-role yokukuprotecta from i-past embi abe nguye okutorchayo futhi. You don't expect that. Ngesikhathi sabomkhethwa, isikhathi sabobani, we expected that. Umfowethu lokho KK. We expected that. Amakhiwa, they were protecting a privilege yabo. They had a right to stop everything. Eza lokho zezaphambanisa privilege yabo. We understood that. Nxa thina sesibalwisile sathi sesibanqobile away from ama-privilege. Ama-privilege asesenza esiwafunayo esenza si-torture abanye bethu kuyini? Ukutshontsha. Ukuthi ube le-right yokutshontsha. Ube le-right yokuthi uthwale 6 kgs egold uhambela kwe-airport. Ube le-right yokuthi ube lemgodi engu-93. Ube le-right nje yokuthi abakho abantwana bahambe bayefunda eGermany as much as they like. Ususithi wenzela nje ukuthi ngingaphumi khona ama-torture someone avumelane lami. So Busho Zenzele la phakathi kwabantu abalapha ekade ngibalaleli kule material yokuthi sincedisane to take this country away from khonokho kade sikhuluma ngakho. The question is, how do we do that? Maybe we need to meet under Ibechu more often. These kinds of people. Mnebe mfuna ukuzwa i-organization ukuthi what are we organizing? What are we sifuna ukwenzani? Abafundisi ocele bathi the Zimbabwe we want, they are organized around it. Bahamba bayaboshwa umbuso khona ngale besiyakhuluma ngokuthi the Zimbabwe we want. The Zimbabwe we want is actually worse kathesi ukuyidinga kwethu than ngesikhathi ekade kukhulunywa ngaso. kulwelwa independence. Khathesi we need it more because it has actually humiliated everyone, it has impoverished everyone, it has done horrible things. Worse Emma Reserve, worse. And the Emma Reserve, if you consider what the 75% population is about the Emma Reserve, 75% population in a year is Musai. See Lapanje because of 75% abantu abahlala Emma Reserve. Okulento yonke embi ebuhlungu. 2 weeks ago, not 2 weeks, last week, umbuso yamazwi lesingcwaba umama kuthiwa Manzima. Just to give you an idea yobuhlungu obuphilwa ngabantu emareserve. Sebhubhile umama lo. First phone call, ngoba lami ngisakhamuzi khona ngale. First phone call ivela kumkakhe. Ungasincedisa yini nxa kule petrol ngekhaya sihambe siyedinga amapholisa ngoba ufele endlini umama lo. Nxa ifele endlini ufele ulethe amapholisa. Naye hamba nini nxa ikhona abazakunika. Lucky ibikhona ipetrol abapompela ngayo injini. Hambe baye emapholiseni. Next call ivela komunye usisi okuthiwa uMaria. Kufuneka 8,000 rand yokuthi angcwatshele umama lo kuthiwa yiphi iphala yakhona nje. Ngathi lokho zalelo 8,000 wathola ngapha. Umntanakhe okuthiwa nguVusa lo munye okuthiwa nguIza. Njengoba ngomakhelwane bahamba bayatshontsha imvu yami. Futhi batshontsha zaba ngu2. Batshontshe uqala long story. Batshontshe isibili. Bayireporta kumalukazana wabo. Umfazi kaVusa uvele eGaranyembe. Wathi lapho evela khona thina kasitshontshi. Nguye owakhulumayo. uVusa was the third person ukuthi angifonini. Athi kimi, hayi baba lapha ngike ngikufonele umama ngaphandle kokuthi uncede sizamgoqa ngengubo siyengcwaba sisicela ibhokisi. Kodwa ngithi Vusa ngaba utshontsha izimvu zami ngenza ukuthengisa ngithengele coffee. But what but ngathi ngirespecta ukuthi at least ucabangile ukuthi unina kufanele angcwatshwe kuhle with dignity. Ukhohliwe lokho okunye akwenzayo. Ngiyasacela silithenge ibhokisi lakhona sihamba sangcwaba. Only to meet a dying population of young people. Sisemngcwabeni lathesi. Kulalokho unathayo lokuthiwa injengo lokho, which is destroying, killing young people. Sebedayiwe khona phana emngcwabeni bangu4. Bathethisa wonke umuntu anyone bamthethisa ngenhlamba akuzwakali ukuthi basondeleni. The only time abaqina sebebanjwa besiyabotshelwa esihlahleni sebengene bachaya ibhokisi. Emakhaya ngithi into lezo siyahlonipha. Ngabona mama phambili sebebaleka. Sokwaqa imhlolo nathi asiyomhlolo. This is what this country is. It has turned young people to this konke sikubonayo khonoko. Asiyomhlolo. It's got nothing to do ukuthi umuntu yimfa. Of course ungakwatshela umuntu ekhaya khonoko akuzwisisi ukuthi asiyomhlolo. Ngoba they don't want to link it with the problem esilayo elizweni. Ordinarily what would make 4 young people, average age 23, but dawe to that extent ukuthi bangene bafike bachaye ibhokisi ngesandla. You know, other than one, it despair, impilo yabo is gone. Injengo is $1 for 2, 45% alcohol. Kusekuseni ngama-9 on an empty stomach. Akula job. This is our country. Those people were reflecting in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe yona leya abafana bangifollow. Ukumhlolo lokuthi imhlolo mina don't believe it. They were representing Konoka. So what can we do thina esikhona nxa sile energy to take our country. We have learned in 42 years ukuthi i-capacity yokwenza ilizwe libe ngcono lokho elikho khona khathesi ayikho kubona abantu. So what must we do? It's not enough just to talk about the problems, but we must organize ourselves in a manner that we can take back this country one way or the other. Kumbe sizazi organizer lapho esizahlangana khona sihlabele kuphela ewawa sakuhlabela asihlabele ewawa, but we also learned all sorts of things. I remember debate eyayisiba khona is ZAPU a socialist state or a socialist party or Umarange besithi no, capitalism. Themba evela ngapha ekheza. Is he still alive? Anyway, we can talk and talk, Zenzele, but I think there should be an opportunity. Lapha esingasoze sixoxe ngalezi zinto because we are commemorating this date, but we are saying, where are we as citizens of this country with all this experience? We're all participants one way or other in trying to make this country better than what it is. What's a sexual ilabo evil one in our country. Ububi obanqobayo. Also kusenza sibe sesiphongo khuluma nje njengamazezele in a country that we all must claim the ownership, the right. Ngiyabonga.